everyone, I'm Jessica Stutzman and welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. In the past decade, cigarette smoking in America has decreased 28%, yet cigarette butts remain the most littered item in the U.S. and across the globe. Dropping cigarette butts and cigar tips to the ground, putting them in planters, and disposing of them in waterways is littering. Though cigarette butts may be small, when they are carelessly dropped to the ground instead of properly disposed of, their litter has a big effect. Joining us today to help us continue this discussion on litter prevention is Sarah Bennett, the Sustainability Officer and Biology Professor at Mercyhurst University. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is a hot topic that I know you and I have had a lot of conversations about, and cigarette littering is still a huge problem, as we can see those statistics. Before we dive into prevention and methods that we've been working on for preventing this from happening, I want to learn a little bit more about your new position as Sustainability Officer.
Sure. So I have been, I just started the position in August 2017. And what I do is I coordinate a lot of the sustainability initiatives that we have at Mercyhurst. So part of the Mercy mission is that we are globally responsible, and the Sisters of Mercy are really interested in making good decisions for the environment, especially as they affect people, as those decisions affect people, and especially people who are less fortunate than ourselves. So people in poverty are generally affected more often by things like climate change and litter and other environmental problems than others are. Mm-hmm. So what I do at Mercyhurst to that end is we take a look at our energy usage and ways that we can improve that. I work with faculty, staff, students, and people in the community to make important decisions, make good decisions about how we're using resources.
Mm-hmm. And it's such a tough job, I think, that you have, because it's really all encompassing. You're talking about recycling, littering, composting, but then you move on to energy, sustainability. There is so much. I feel like we could talk about one whole program just on your projects and not just littering. But this one is a really important topic to us. It's always a problem. It doesn't seem to go away. I know we've had International Coastal Cleanup and the DEP and Erie County Recycling on our program talking about how significant litter is to our cleanups. So from your perspective, why is cigarette butt litter such a problem?
I think the biggest issue is that it's so huge and that some people don't see it as litter, and so that adds to the problem. The other issue is that because they are small, you don't see them as often, they get overlooked. Mm-hmm. But more and more research is being done to show the negative impacts that the litter has on the environment.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of those impacts?
So the big thing is leachate. Mm-hmm. So a lot of studies have been done to look at the effects of leachate on living organisms, especially small organisms, small aquatic organisms.
Mm-hmm. And if our viewers don't know, can you just give the definition really fast of what leachate is?
Sure. So leachate is basically the product of those cigarette butts soaking in water. Mm-hmm. And so studies are done in the lab to show they'll soak a certain amount of cigarette butts into water, and they'll test what chemicals are in there, but then they'll also show the effect on larvae and on developing fish and on invertebrates, and most often the leachate is lethal. Mm-hmm. If it's not lethal and at small amounts, it might be what's called sublethal. Mm-hmm. And in that case, the effects are on development, and those organisms don't develop as well as they would otherwise. So all of those studies have been done in the lab, and we don't know the effect that those cigarette butts really could have out in the environment. Mm-hmm. Because but I have to assume that because there are so many cigarette butts, and especially on our beaches, which is what my project mm-hmm. looks at, that those chemicals are getting into the water.
And you just mentioned that they're lethal. I mean, it's lethal. It's, has so many carcinogens in it, and it's cancerous to humans who smoke and cigarettes or cigars or what other form of nicotine is being used here. But like you mentioned, when they're being thrown out the window onto the street, and then the rain falls and it falls onto the cigarette butts, these are washed into maybe a storm sewer or something like that, or in your particular case that you've studied, Presque Isle and our beaches, and from there, I mean, they're not even making it through any sort of, I mean, not that these would normally, but through any sort of treatment or any, treatment plan or anything. These are going, the rain is hitting them, and whatever rainwater is accumulating in those cigarette butts is ultimately making it into our lake and into our waters.
Right. And one thing about those cigarette butts as well, the butts themselves, I think a lot of people think that they're mostly paper and that they'll break down in the environment, and they don't. That butt is mostly made of cellulose acetate, which is a plastic, and that plastic doesn't break down over time. And so those are going to be around for a long time. The paper wrapper might break down and will go away, but the actual filter is going to be around for a long time. And all of the chemicals from that burned cigarette are going to be in that as well.
Have you seen any studies about the decomposition rates of cigarette butts?
I did. I read one study that showed that I'm trying to remember. One looked, I guess sunlight will increase the rate of decomposition, but what they saw is in the lake, or in a body of water, the combination of sunlight and waves might help break that down, and might take a couple of years for it to break down. But where, even if it is breaking apart, all of those parts are still in that water too.
Right.
So it breaks apart, but all those tiny pieces and all those chemicals are still getting into the water.
Right. And I think that also leads us into another discussion, and we can come back here to our original litter prevention topic. But like you said, with it being made of not paper, but mostly like plastic components and whatnot, when they do break down, all they do is break down into smaller pieces, which a lot of people have coined the term microplastics or anything like that, which end up getting, again, not just in our lake, but in any body of water, getting in the bellies of fish or of larger marine mammals. So I think that's also of concern, that there might be animals who are digesting the leftover cigarette butts as well. So you focused on Presque Isle. Did you have a specific reason for that?
Mercyhurst adopted Beach 10 starting in 2012, when the DCNR started the Adopted Beach program, or joined the Adopted Beach program that was already in place. And so we've been cleaning up Beach 10 the second Saturday of every month since 2012, from May through October. And so I started getting involved with those cleanups, and it was very obvious that cigarette butts are always the most common item picked up. And so I thought, this is silly. We're picking up these same things every single month, and can't we do something to keep these things from getting onto the beach? And so in speaking with Brittany Prishak from Erie County, she pointed me in the direction of Keep America Beautiful, and also connected me with Brian Gula with the DCNR out at the park, who had also done a similar project. So through those connections, I found out about the cigarette litter prevention program through Keep America Beautiful, and was able to apply and secure funding for a project out there. So Beach 10 is our adopted beach from Adopted Beach. That also allows us to have some historical data that we can compare to.
And what is the cigarette litter prevention program through Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful?
So what it is they provide funds for canisters to collect the cigarette litter, but they also want a public education program to go with that. So it's a multifaceted approach to reduce cigarette litter. So we do an initial survey of the site to have baseline data, and we have even more than that because of the Adopt a Beach data from the past several years. So we have a lot of baseline data. Then we introduce the canisters, and we put 6 out at Beach 10. Brian Gula helped us with that. He used the auger and dug the holes for us. So we installed those last August, And then the next part is a post-survey, at least one, and they want more than that. Again, we have plenty of that data, of those data, because of the Adopt a Beach cleanups. And then the last part is public education. So with public education, they really kind of leave it up to us, but they want us to communicate why cigarette litter is a problem.
Mm-hmm. And so that was all funded through Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful.
Keep America Beautiful,
Keep America Beautiful.
Keep Pennsylvania is beautiful.
Right.
Is an
Well,
affiliate
and
with
like you said, there's so many aspects. So there's Keep America Beautiful, Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful, and because of Brittany Preshak, now Keep Erie County Beautiful.
Right, and they're all affiliated.
Right. So they're all affiliated with it. Millcreek Township is also a partner in the Keep Erie County Beautiful program. So it is all tied together, and sometimes I use their names interchangeably. But with that funding, what were you able to accomplish?
So as I said, we purchased the canisters and the posts and everything to install those, with signs as well. So that was the bulk of our funding. And then we also printed some brochures that we could hand out at different events. We also this summer are sponsoring Seawolves and have a banner that sits right outside of the park that says cigarette litter is litter too. And then that came with a radio spot as well. And then this summer we're also going to have a table at Presque Isle during the Sunset concert series to hand out these pocket ashtrays.
Okay, good. And now that I was gonna say, we can show these to our guests. It says, "Thank you for not littering." And these are pocket ashtrays for, again, we were just talking that a lot of the vehicles, a lot of the cars made today don't have that ashtray anymore.
Right, and that's part of, at the beginning you said that cigarette smoking has decreased, but that litter, and I would say litter maybe even has increased in that same time, because we don't have ashtrays in cars anymore, so people don't have anywhere to put those cigarette butts when they're smoking in their cars. People also can't smoke inside in businesses and restaurants anymore, and so they're going outside to smoke. And Keep America Beautiful has done a lot of research to show what that littering behavior, what causes that littering behavior, and the biggest thing is lack of receptacles. Okay. And so that's why a big part of their grant is to provide the money for those canisters and also for these pocket ashtrays.
Right. So the behavior, the thought, I think the one piece here that we need to dispel this thought process is that a cigarette butt, oh, that's not litter, I can throw it out my window. Or that's, I can, I'm here sitting on a beach blanket, I can just toss it next to me in the sand. Right. I think people have that thought process out of sight, out of mind, and we really, really need people to get away from thinking that. And then, I think once we make that jump to making people recognize that cigarette butts are litter, I think we then need to, I heard something that, somebody won't walk more than 30 steps without littering. If they can't find a receptacle, whether that be a pop can, a wrapper, a cigarette butt, if they can't walk 30 steps and find a receptacle, it will find its place on the ground. So we need to first change that mindset that cigarette butt is litter, and then now that we've accomplished that, we need to offer them the receptacles.
Right.
So we're doing that through the canisters and then these pocket ashtrays too.
The other thing with smokers that Keep America Beautiful has found through their studies is that they will, often they do know that cigarette litter is litter, and they don't. But if there isn't a proper receptacle, they know that if they put their butt in a trash can, then that could start a fire too.
That's true.
So that's another part of the problem.
Yes, that's very true. And I want to go backwards here for a moment. You also mentioned the Seawolves ballpark. Why did you decide to target that ballpark as well? Brittany
Preshak has posted a cigarette collection canister there. That also came from, I don't know if it was Keep Pennsylvania or Keep America Beautiful, but she has that. So she's already kind of worked with them with that. But the other thing is I thought I could reach a lot of people through the Erie Seawolves. I mean, technically my project is out at the beach, but...
you're reaching the masses.
Reaching the masses. And then because that fit the budget, and then also we had the banners plus the radio spot. Right. And I thought that would be a good way to reach
And
more people.
Yeah, and I do think it's important always to have support from the top down. And since the Sea Wolves already had the canister there, I think it does make sense to continue to educate, the ballpark guests and the people who go to the baseball games with consistent messaging. If you stop educating, then people, I don't want to say they forget to do it, but it always needs to be a constant reminder, at the forefront of their mind that, this is what we do here at the Erie Sea Wolves. This is what we do here at Presque Isle. So I'm glad you put canisters there too. And so what are your future plans for the project?
So this year will be the last year of funding that we have. So this year the canisters will stay at the beach, and so we're going to really hit things hard this year. We're going to, like I said, we'll be at the Sunset Beach Sunset Concert Series. We'll be having a variety of kind of pop-up events at our beach where we're handing out these pocket ashtrays and brochures. We'll be at Discover Presque Isle as well. And then the Sea Wolves and radio spot will continue through this summer. After that, I may consider applying for additional funds for additional beaches out at Presque Isle. Another thing we might think about doing is installing some table ashtrays. They're smaller and they kind of fit on the table, and I've talked to some people with the city about doing that throughout the city as well, that those are available. Because that's a lot, even with our canisters out at the beach, when we do our beach cleanups, we still see a lot of cigarette butts around the picnic tables, even though the canisters are, I would even say they're within the 30 steps. But they still just, there's habit there too. Yeah. So maybe even closer, we might install some additional canisters there.
Right. And so when somebody comes to the beach, and they're visiting Beach 10 in particular, what are they going to see? What can they expect?
So at each entrance to the park, we have a canister. So there's one at the far west entrance. There are two at the main entrance. One on either side of the concession stand, another one a little further from the concession stand, and one on the east entrance to the beach. So they're well spread out. If we happen to be there when they visit, then we'll have a little table with some information. We may be walking around and offering people who we see smoking in a very friendly way. That it's important to say that this is not an anti-smoking campaign, it's an anti-litter campaign. Just offering a pocket ashtray. And my experience has been that people really like them and that they find them really convenient. I really don't think, I think a lot of people want to do the right thing. It's not always, the opportunity isn't always available.
Right. They want to do the right thing, but I think sometimes it's maybe doing the right thing could be inconvenient. And so, or maybe they didn't turn around and see the canister there. But the canister like this one, they're usually black, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and so they're black and they're on these posts, and those are the ones that are at Beach 10. I know Millcreek Township, we have installed them at around our parks and at the Millfair Compost and Recycling Center. We don't allow any smoking, obviously, at Millfair because we have leaf debris and whatnot. But if we have any volunteers working, what I don't want to happen is for them to go right outside my gate, smoke, litter the cigarette butt, and then have it blow back into my site. So again, we don't allow any smoking out at Millfair. That would be very, very dangerous. But in order to prevent something like the scenario I just described, we do have one cigarette butt litter receptacle there. So even if somebody actually is pulling in with their car and dropping off brush and debris and they're smoking, they will be asked to put it out, and we have the receptacle there for them because it's all about prevention. Again, about preventing starting fires, particularly at our site, but also about preventing litter. So these little canisters are around, and Brittany's canisters that she has placed throughout the county as well, I think are really interesting and really fun. Do you want to talk about what some of Brittany's look like too?
Sure. So Brittany was able to secure these, they're larger, either post or wall-mounted canisters, and we can update them with questions. And so people kind of vote with their cigarette butt just to make it a little more fun and draw people to them a little bit more. So it could even be something like, do you prefer cheese pizza or pepperoni pizza? And people just put the cigarette butt there.
Right.
So those I know are posted around the Erie area, And she's looking for more places for those. So we do have some that are available if there are businesses that would like to have some of those too.
That's wonderful news. And so what do you see a big difference in your project already that you've started? Do you see a big difference when you do those litter cleanups before you installed the canisters and after you installed the canisters?
We have, and actually there haven't been that many cleanups because the canisters were installed in August. We had a cleanup pretty quickly right after that, and then one in September and October, and now just one in May. And I haven't seen the data from that May cleanup yet, but even with just those few months, we saw 71% reduction in
71%.
Cigarette litter at the beach. Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's amazing results.
Yeah.
And so I would love to see, your grant get refunded and you continue this project with the other beaches and maybe, even some spots downtown, like you said. I think the most exciting part about this is not, are we only taking cigarette litter off of the beaches or away from the Seawolves ballpark, but tell me what's happening with the cigarette butts once they enter the canister. What happens then?
Sure. So I actually have some students, another partial funder for this project is Regional Science Consortium, because we have a research project going on with this. So not only did we install the canisters and we're doing the public education, but we're also collecting data. So I already mentioned that some of those data are coming from Adopt a Beach. I'm also sending students from Mercyhurst out each week to collect the cigarette butts from the canisters. It's not the most fun job, but it's giving us some really great data. So what we do is each week we go and we open the canisters and we count the cigarette butts that we have. So basically that gives us a count of the number of cigarette butts we've kept off of the beach. And we collect those and take them to Brian Gula with DCNR, and once he has enough, sends all of those cigarette butts to a recycling company called TerraCycle, and they get cleaned and recycled into park benches and composite decking and things like that. So they get a new life too, and I think that's really a great way to kind of close that loop.
It absolutely is, and as the recycling coordinator, I think it's really exciting that, plastic bottles and pop cans and cardboard, all of that has always, for a very long time, has always been recycled, and we've been able to close that loop. And for the very first time, closing the loop on cigarette butts is just incredible to me, that we can make park benches from something that really was just litter. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there any other messaging that you want to get out to our viewers about either changing their behaviors when it comes to, again, not an anti-smoking campaign, but this anti-littering campaign? Is there any other message you want to get out to our viewers?
I think and it's not just cigarette litter, but any litter and any kind of decision to be more environmentally friendly, that it really just takes being more mindful of your impact on the environment. So we all are very busy, and we take things for granted, and we want to get through our days and make sure we get to everything that we can. And so convenience becomes almost necessary. But when we're trying to have our lives be more convenient because we're so busy, we often forget what our impact is, what we're taking from the earth. So I would say, as with cigarette litter and any other litter and any other of our decisions, that you really need to think about your place in the world and the effect that you're going to have on the world. So that might be one cigarette butt, but think about how many cigarette butts one smoker might toss even in a given day, and then the number of smokers has a huge impact. So to just be mindful of that, and I think when you just stop and think about what your impact might be, then that helps us make better choices.
And I always have seen, too, with either litter or illegal dump sites, litter draws more litter, or illegal dumping draws more illegal dumping. And so I think if we can prevent it from happening, I think it will, really, really reduce the amount, again, that you said, people are either, throwing those cigarette butts out the window or not. I think not having them there to begin with is always a good start.
Yes.
So
right.
I want to thank you so much for your efforts. The show is just about done here. I want our viewers to be able to get in touch with you if they have any questions about your project, or if maybe they think their site is, you know, a good place for a cigarette butt litter receptacle. Can you give your information to our viewers?
Sure. So they can reach me at sbennett, it's SBENNETT @mercyhurst.edu. My office phone number is 814-824-3611. And we also have a Mercyhurst University Sustainability Facebook page. And I don't know the exact link to that.
Yeah, we'll put that on the show here. Again, thank you so much for your efforts. This is really, really important and near and dear to my heart, and I know that it is to yours as well. So thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Viewers, again, cigarette butt litter is litter, and we don't want to litter out our car window. We don't want to litter on Presque Isle. We really, really do want to cherish the beauty of our environment, and as stereotypical as it may sound, we really want to keep our community really, really beautiful for ourselves and for future generations. So if you have any other questions, be sure to get in contact and get in touch with Sarah here, and she's got a lot of great information, resources, handouts that she can provide to you on cigarette litter prevention. Thank you for tuning in to the Millcreek Government Channel, and until next time, have a wonderful day.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.